Welcome back to Gold Derby. I'm Christopher Rosen. I'm joined by Joyce saying, Joyce, it's time for another edition of Oscars Playback. It's my privilege. Thank you, Joyce.
And we're going back to the start of the 90s.
We somehow skipped this one, even though it had some of the
best.
Didn't
do it in order at all, so.
No order, no rhyme or reason, but we're doing the 1991 Oscar ceremony, celebrating 1990 in film. What a great year. What a ridiculous Oscar ceremony, Joyce. I was watching it last night, though, and just really enjoyed it. I thought it's like, again, another so much better than the Oscars we had this past year. Billy Crystal's second time hosting happened Monday, another Monday ceremony for you.
And also a 9 p.m. ceremony.
March 25th, 1991, started at 9 p.m. It was only 3 hours and 30 minutes, though. So not the worst, if you're kind of accounting from that standpoint. 42.7 million viewers, up about 4 million from the year prior, when Driving Miss Daisy was a controversial winner of Best Picture.
But you know what was nominated this year?
Goodfellas.
And Ghost.
Ghost. So we'll talk about all this. Let's start with 90 in film. Our favorite Wikipedia section, blank year in film. What a year.
Ghost, the biggest movie of the year.
Ghost is the biggest movie of the year from worldwide perspective. Fantastic movie. Was an actual cultural phenomenon, I feel like, at the time. A lot. So I was pretty young here, probably 12, 11 or 12.
Probably.
I turned 12 in 1990. So for most of the year, I was 11. So a lot of these movies I didn't see in the theater, though I did see, like, I vividly remember seeing, I'll give you some examples, and they're on this list. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, saw that one in the theater. Home Alone, clearly, saw that one in the theater. And Gremlins 2, the new batch, I saw in the theater, which I loved. Great movie, great experience. We'll make another reference to that later in this recording. But Ghost I did not see in the theater. It was a cultural phenomenon, though, and I remember watching it at home on VHS after it came out.
Yeah, so I did not see that in the theater. I saw that eventually later on. I don't even know when. And hilariously, I never watched the movie in full again until like 2 years ago when one of our contributors again, Kevin Jacobson, asked me to go on his pod.
So what you think? I haven't watched in a long time.
Yeah, and I rewatched it. Yeah. No, yeah, I like when I watched it the first time, I don't know, like 20 years ago, I guess. Like I liked it. Like it's not like my favorite movie or anything, but I enjoyed it and I liked how it, blended all these different disparate genres. It worked really well. I think it's really the chemistry between Patrick Swayze and Whoopi Goldberg that sells the movie like completely. Incredible. Like I care more about them than like him and Demi.
Sure. Incredible movie with three incredible actors that I feel like the top of their or ascendant fame, right? Like Patrick Swayze off of Dirty Dancing, which I obviously saw a ton of times as a kid, was like a huge star, very great personality. Whoopi Goldberg, just hilarious in this movie. We'll talk about her a lot, obviously, here for winning an Oscar. And then Demi Moore, just an iconic Hollywood star, I feel like. And that this is obviously her ascendant moment as a top grossing figure. I love this movie.
We'll go through this list. Pottery scene.
The pottery scene was obviously immediately, we didn't call them memes back then, Joyce, in 1990, but that was a meme. That was obviously a meme. Everyone spoofed that. Later in movies, they spoofed it. Everyone referenced it. Great moment. This is a year actually of a lot of memes. If you look at these movies, Ghost has the pottery meme. Home Alone.
So much.
That's my.
You have to like pull your face down
like
too.
this. I'm doing the thing. Yeah. I'm doing the Kevin McAllister. I don't know. It looks like the Scream. What's the Scream painting? That guy.
Yeah.
You know what I mean. Yeah. But that was a meme. And then Pretty Woman with the thing and the Julia laugh.
Yeah.
3 memes.
It's like a big year for like burgeoning stars.
Yes. So the top 3 movies of the box office were Ghost, Home Alone, Pretty Woman, Dances with Wolves, which was like obviously Kevin Costner just ascendant, betting on himself, directing this movie as a first-time director, cleans up at the box office, sweeps through the Oscars. Just an incredible moment for Kevin Costner.
And also, obviously, he kicks off this decade of the 90s of actors turned directors, directing themselves in the films too, and then just dominating the Oscars.
Yes. Though I don't know. It's funny because like obviously that wasn't a unique phenomenon because you have like Robert Redford obviously was a film, didn't direct himself necessarily in Ordinary People, but was like a star who went, an actor who became a director. Clint Eastwood, obviously a long successful career as a director and an actor and would win.
Years after this, Unforgiven.
Correct. But like Kevin Costner was really like the poster child for I am an actor and now I'm a director and you will give me Oscars for this. As we saw this in the last one of these, we did Mel Gibson certainly carrying the tradition. So I feel like Braveheart is a way inferior film than Dances with Wolves, even though I don't even think Dances with Wolves is great movie.
I think Dances with Wolves is a better movie than Braveheart, but again, not one I revisit or have revisited. Like I think it's a gorgeous film, but I don't like care to watch it again.
The other movies on the list here, Total Recall, which obviously was too young for at the time, but later as a teenager became one of my favorite movies. I still think it's absolutely awesome. A great Schwarzenegger, Paul Verhoeven movie, just the best. So many great moments. Awesome premise. Way in. Back to the Future Part 3, another one I saw in the theater because they did this 6 months after Back to the Future Part 2. So you had to come back to see how it finished up. I think
it was
now
like
maybe
what they did with The Matrix later on.
I personally think the Back to the Future sequels are way more successful than the Matrix sequels, even though Back to the Future 3 is certainly the weakest of the three.
I'm not a big Matrix person in general, so like I don't like really care about them at all. Did I see the third Matrix? I don't think so.
Did you see the fourth?
I did not see the fourth, no.
Die Hard 2 next on the list here. Another movie I came to much later in life, or not much later, but like a few years later. Obviously didn't see it in theater. Absolutely love this movie as well. You'll be shocked to know, Joyce. The Die Hard movies, the first three, all of them are great. Die Hard 2, I think, is hilariously good. I remember there was Bruce Willis kills a henchman by stabbing him in the eye with an icicle. That's like burned in my brain because it's so violent.
This is like also the era when like the sequels just like went bigger. Yeah. Always. Yeah. And like that's why like these sequels are good.
Yeah.
Even if like they don't make sense.
No, but this one kind of makes sense. It's a great movie. Rennie Harlan directed this and Ford Fairlane, and they came out within the same week, basically. July 4th for Die Hard, Adventures of Ford Fairlane, another movie I saw on VHS, Andrew Dice Clay at the height of his mania, starring in a movie that's completely inappropriate and problematic. If I ever was going to revisit it now, I'm sure it would just be, I think if you try to rent it on Amazon or any streaming service, it probably just disintegrates at this point because it's so toxic. But
I mean, like, is it even there in the first place?
Who knows? But that was one I remember watching at home. Presumed Innocent, Harrison Ford in his
Presumed Innocent.
Yep, in his like legal thriller era, his era there. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, as we mentioned, loved it. Big fan. Love those Ninja Turtles. And then Kindergarten Cop, which I did not see in the theater, but obviously saw later.
I was obsessed with Kindergarten Cop, obviously because there's a Joyce in it. And That was the first time I had like watched anything with a character with my name. Because not a lot of characters.
No, not a lot of Joyces.
No, as we've established before. So
that goes through that list. That's the top grossing list of movies. And then there are dozens of movies. This is another phenomenal year where not only the Oscars themselves, the ceremony is better, the winners are better, but the movies on a whole are just like, man, there are a ton of movies. I was making a list here and I just kept writing movies down. Like, it's an unbelievable year. You have everything from like, obviously, like we mentioned, like these top hits, Dick Tracy, Gremlins 2, like I mentioned, Tremors, Hard to Kill with our favorite Steven Seagal, Joyce. I actually have, I'm going to do a little prop work here. The VHS of Hard to Kill sitting right here on my desk.
How long did it take for you to dig that up?
I have it here because I got for Christmas, somebody gave me as a novelty gift the VHS box subscription for like 3 months, and that was one of the random VHSs that came. So it just sits here on my desk.
I have a lot of VHSs, but I don't have a VCR.
I have VCR. I took it from my parents actually. Next time if you ever come over, we can watch a VHS right here.
Yeah, because also I used to in college, I had my TV was like a DVD player VCR combo.
Sure.
And then obviously
very popular.
Graduated, moved it back into like my parents' house, but they've since gotten rid of it because they're like, we're not keeping this thing. It's like 500 pounds.
Other movies that I was like, Quick Change, Bill Murray, Randy Quaid, and Gina Davis. So fraught perhaps now from a cast perspective, but a fantastic One Crazy Night New York City movie. The Freshman with Marlon Brando. Young Guns 2, which is an actual Oscar nominee.
Yes.
Oscar nominee.
Should have probably won Best Song.
I think we'll talk about that. And I think I agree, even though it's nice that Stephen Sondheim has an Oscar. Mo Better Blues, Two Jakes was like a big deal, even though it was like, even for me as a 12-year-old, I knew it was like a sequel to Chinatown. It was like covered by the the Hollywood tabloid shows, certainly, you know, like Entertainment Tonight and stuff. My Blue Heaven was a favorite of mine. You remember that one?
Yes, but I have not rewatched it in years.
So I rewatched.
I haven't watched a lot of these movies in a really long time as I was like going through.
I've rewatched some of them. So My Blue Heaven I rewatched from Nora Ephron.
Like Look Who's Talking To. I watched that so much when I was a kid.
It dozens of times.
I've not watched that in a lot. Mermaids, love that when I was a kid.
Great. Home Alone we mentioned. Miller's Crossing was one I definitely didn't know about at the time, but like as an older person, loved the Coen Brothers movie. Completely excellent. Here's a couple other ones. Desperate Hours, Michael Cimino movie with Mickey Rourke as in a remake of the Humphrey Bogart movie, and I think the lead is actually also Anthony Hopkins, right? Isn't that right?
Yeah, and I think Mickey Rourke and is it Mimi Rogers?
Mickey Rourke, Mimi Rogers, Anthony Hopkins, Kelly Lynch, Lindsay Krause, David Morse, Shawnee Smith. And I remember it's incredibly violent. I remember being like, this is subversive for me as a 12-year-old to see this. Let me see. I just lost my place here. Home Alone, like The King of New York, another one I did not see at the time. Abel Ferreira, Christopher Walken movie, but great. Men at Work, which is a Charlie Sheen, Emilio Estevez.
Yeah, I mean, you know how I feel about Emilio. So, and this is pre-Mighty Ducks too.
Pre-Mighty Ducks, and it just is like great fun. House Party, Joe versus the Volcano, which obviously came after.
It's before. It's their first collab.
Correct. But and not well received, but I actually watched this one a lot too. Honestly, it was on a lot on cable. Hunt for Red October, which I was never into, the Tom Clancy stuff, but there you go. Tremors, I think I mentioned.
Hunt for Red October's accents are wild.
Correct.
Yeah.
And then two maybe fraught ones, which we'll talk about during this, obviously. Bonfire of the Vanities, which is a colossal failure on multiple levels, and so much so that there's a book about it, obviously. The Devil's Candy, that they turned into a podcast this last year. Brian De Palma just totally unmatched, overmatched maybe perhaps, but great. And then The Godfather Part 3, Joyce, which has had a reevaluation, I feel like.
Godfather Part 3 is always funny to me because when everyone talks about The Godfather, and especially in March, you know, for the 50th anniversary of the first movie, you know, everyone talks about that obviously and the sequel, but no one brings up Part 3.
So I'll tell you this, I love Part 3. Actually, I think it's pretty good.
Of course you do.
It's actually, so here's the thing, it's not as good as The Godfather or Godfather Part 2, clearly. And even I think the Coppola re-edit of it is improvement on Part 3, but Part 3 on its own is actually pretty solid, and gets a bad rap because I just think people are like, whatever. And also it came out obviously in the shadow of Goodfellas, which we have not even mentioned yet, but
no, you already mentioned it.
I guess I mentioned it
like 10 minutes ago. There was just a lot of mob movies this year.
There's a lot of mob movies, and also Goodfellas I think was like a breath of fresh air where it felt like The Godfather was like the staid kind of stale conceit. And like people were more the way that this Goodfellas shows the mafia in this like really sexy, like kind of, you know, underground, like the guys on the ground with their noses in it, getting it done, versus like the rarefied air of Michael Corleone. I think people were more into that like gritty take on the mob than.
I don't think it's been so long since Part 2, because at this point it's like 16 years, right? Yeah, 16 years.
Right. Which is not that long, Joyce. We're still like 16 years ago. We're like, you know, what are we talking about here? Not that long.
16 years, like from right now, it's 2006.
Yeah, we still talk about movies that happened in 2006, though.
Yeah, but like making sequels to a film from 2006. I'll take The Departed Part 2, I guess. But it's like, it's kind of like how I don't like we were talking the other day, like offline, about like the Screams. Like I saw the first 3 Screams.
Right.
In the theater, but you know, it like there was such a long gap until like 4. Like I've never seen Scream 4 or 5.
And I'm saying like you should. Scream 4 was great, and Scream 5 is
like I don't care to. Like,
oh, they're awesome movies though. They're really good.
I don't care to. And
I'm disappointed for you because Scream 3 stinks. It's clearly the worst one. You ended on.
I never said I like Scream 3.
No, I'm just saying you ended on a dud.
I'm just saying I saw those 3 because they were like successive within like a 3-year span, and then it was such a long gap. So I think like maybe like there is, you know, maybe not a lack of excitement, because I think like people were anticipating it, but it's also like, oh, it's been 16 years, like we also moved on, and we have like another mob movie here, and like Dick Tracy also,
right,
like a mob movie too.
Yeah, this is like a great moment for mob stuff, because you also have like, I mean, even like, I mean, Bugsy you'll have in a few, you know what I mean? Like there's a lot of Billy Bathgate. Right. There's a lot of mafia.
It's great stuff, because you have Warren Beatty, who started dating Madonna.
Yes.
From Dick Tracy. And then he is like literally making Bugsy like at the time of the ceremony with Annette Bening, who like presents on the show. And then obviously they get together.
Correct. So that's the year in film. I mean, this is a great year. I'm sure I didn't even mention a ton of these movies.
You didn't mention Postcards from the Edge.
So I was going to mention that obviously when we do the categories and stuff. But Postcards from the Edge, another movie. Obviously, I came too much later. I did not see it.
And Edward Scissorhands, which got nothing.
Edward Scissorhands, another movie.
But also, I have not seen that in a really long time as well.
No,
I think that the movie I've seen the most from 1990 is Home Alone.
Home Alone, and I rewatched Home Alone like last year, maybe. Holds up. Great movie.
I watch it every year, like every Christmas, multiple times.
Just
1 and 2. I don't watch 3, obviously.
I'll give you a couple other ones that I personally were like, these were movies that were on a lot. There's a movie called Side Out, Joyce. You ever see that one?
No.
Side Out is with C. Thomas Howell and Peter Howell, I believe, who is you might know from Peter Horton, excuse me. I apologize. Peter Horton, who you might know from 30-something, and Harley Jane Kozak and Courtney Thorne Smith. And it is basically like the concept. I'll read the Wikipedia here quickly. It's a sports drama about a beach volleyball competition, which is basically then it ends up being what if Top Gun volleyball scene, but a sports movie. Fantastic stuff. Absolutely loved it as a kid. Was on 1,000 times.
So are you saying in 4 years we'll have like dogfight football?
Perhaps would be called, I don't know, side in. I don't know what you would call it.
I don't know the rules of like dogfight football. So.
Never even heard of it, but until Top Gun Maverick. But yeah, so Side Out, great movie, saw it a ton. That was one I was like, oh, I remember that one. The Ernest movies are here. Ernest Goes to Jail, another one that was on a lot. Yes. And then what was the other one I was looking at? Oh, Crybaby, which was on again a lot and this is like it's an interesting year for a lot of actors, because this is like an ascendant year for Johnny Depp. I feel like obviously with Edward Scissorhands and the Crybaby. Schwarzenegger obviously has 2 movies in the top 10. You mentioned Julia Roberts here, Kevin Costner breaking out, I think in a big fashion, even more so than like Field of Dreams era Kevin Costner. I mean, just like one after the other, these are like major stars. Tom Cruise marries Nicole Kidman, has Days of Thunder, and is, according to Billy Crystal, as we'll find out here later, some people say there are no real movie stars anymore. I say they're wrong. Ladies and gentlemen, Tom Cruise. I'll tell you what, it's 2022. Is that what year we're in? And you could still say the same thing.
Well, the announcer on the red carpet calls it like one of America's favorite movie stars or something.
Yes.
Yes. So one of the only things that is still accurate and factually correct, because the announcer also called Ron Silver an Academy Award winner for some reason.
So this is, let's start there. So the ceremony starts with the red carpet announcer. We've done a lot of these actually, right? Probably like 6 or 7. This is the worst one by far. Just completely a disaster. So many factual errors, so many offensive things, and then also just ignoring people. Did you notice that? You were texting me a lot last night. So I'll let you start, and then I'll mention the ones I wrote down as well. But this is just a rough beat.
Yeah, so Oprah's not here. Unlike the one we did last week.
Right.
So they say 2-time nominee for Best Actress, Whoopi Goldberg. When did she get her second Best Actress nomination? Because she's nominated for Supporting Actress here. And then here's Ron Silver, Academy Award winner. Since when?
No Academy Award, not even nominated. You couldn't even be like, oh, he was nominated for Reversal of Fortune.
Love Ron Silver, West Wing, right. All time.
Right.
And then just Brenda Fricker, period. Like nothing. Just.
I'm surprised that you even were able to.
Not even Academy Award winner Brenda Fricker. Just
correct.
Brenda.
Because she's the reigning Best Supporting Actress winner.
Yeah. Here to present.
Yes.
To Joe Pesci.
Yes.
And nothing. Just Brenda Fricker, period.
Yes.
This one is actually good though. A sure nominee for next year's Oscars, Anthony Hopkins, because Silence of the Lambs had already been out for 6 weeks at this point and killing it.
So that was a fun thing watching the ceremony. Everyone knows that Silence of the Lambs is going to dominate the following year, and they really play into it.
Yeah,
Anthony
and like
Hopkins,
they were like, we got to get Anthony Hopkins and Jodie Foster on this year's show.
They present Screenplay. They play the Silence of the Lambs music. Obviously, they're like very prominent, I think, in the ceremony. It's a great moment, and it's like, it reminds me of how they handled the Black Panther the year it was out, and then the year later, basically.
Mm-hmm. This one is just sad. 5-time nominee Glenn Close.
Tough beat.
Yeah, this one just you know how we've said like they usually talk about the actress's looks.
Yes,
this one is twice nominated for her enormous talents, Deborah Winger. So twist.
Yes.
Yes.
The next one you wrote me. I'll just the pretty woman herself, Julie Roberts. So not always to talent.
Yeah, and then heavily nominated, multi-talented Kevin Costner. Heavily nominated. Okay.
The ones I had written down. So they go with the Tom Cruise, like you mentioned previously, one of America's favorite actors, Tom Cruise. He's with Nicole Kidman. They don't even mention Nicole Kidman. Just that's it. She just might as well not even exist. And this is a theme here in a few in a row. They later completely whiff on Daniel Day-Lewis. He's standing there. He won Best Actor the year before, and they don't say a thing. He just there's like, Daniel Day-Lewis.
No one saw My Left Foot.
No, but I mean, okay. And then Julie Roberts, the pretty woman herself, is with Kiefer Sutherland. They were together at the time.
Engaged.
Doesn't get mentioned. Doesn't exist. And then Richard Gere, star of Pretty Woman with Cindy Crawford, also not mentioned Cindy Crawford. I just think it's weird that they're not even referencing the other people when they're actually famous. I don't know.
Yeah, and it's also funny because even though this is 5 years later, but like last week when we did the ceremony in '96 and Meryl Streep was nominated, and they literally say like, Best Actress nominee Meryl Streep, pause, she's with her son.
Right. It just anything would have been better than these whips.
Her son.
Yes.
This one is the legend not only at Oscar time, but all year long, Mr. Bob Hope. But this time they did identify his wife, and his wife Dolores.
There you go. Here's one that would get immediately canceled. They show Rodney Grant, who is a cast member of Dances with Wolves, and they say Graham Greene from Dances with Wolves, who is a nominee. They don't even mention that, I don't believe. Or do they mention Oscar nominee Graham Greene?
I think they did, but it was a rough one because you could tell they were struggling and they didn't know, and they were just trying to find words to say.
Because there's and clearly like, oh, here's a Native American actor on the red carpet. It must be Graham Greene. Clearly, who else would it be? That's basically the tone of this. It's completely offensive. And then this one I just laughed at a lot. They have Al Pacino and Andy Garcia yucking it up. Nothing. And then pause. Two of the stars of Godfather Part 3. Yes, just two of them. I don't know what their names are.
No names at all.
It doesn't matter. It's totally fine. So that's how it opens. So an auspicious debut, I would say, right? For this ceremony. But then we get out there. Carl Malden comes out to plug Traveler's Checks, I believe. And then also the Lumiere.
Carl Malden also, he talks, so it's the centennial of the invention of the camera, or a version. So he says, like, Thomas Edison basically invented the camera, quote, 100 years ago in 1981. Transposed the numbers there. So, yeah.
And this is now a runner of the whole ceremony. They throw to Michael Caine. I'm Michael Caine. That's my Michael Caine impression, Joyce.
Who's in Paris at 3:15 a.m.
It's 3:15 a.m. in Paris. Now I don't even know what I'm doing. I don't know what the voice is. And he's in a theater, supposedly live on satellite, even though he's got like a bunch of extras dressed as 1901 or whatever year it is. What year is it supposed to be?
It's supposed to be 1891.
Dressed like they're watching the first film.
Oh, no. The first movie was played in 1895.
Okay, so that's where they are. They go back in time with people dressed up. I don't know why any of this is happening, why it needs to be where it is, why it wasn't just pre-taped.
The themes were a big thing in this decade.
Yeah.
So this was the theme. Like, they were just celebrating the origin stories of movies.
Correct.
It was the centennial of the camera.
So now we're about
the movie making camera.
15 minutes into the ceremony. It hasn't even started yet. There is a dance number too, I believe, that I didn't even watch because it opens up with Debbie Allen choreographing Jasmine Guy. doing like a interpretive dance of the movies, which they come back later and do during score even. So all of this happens where Billy
I miss the interpretive dances, honestly. I enjoy them.
So. I would say I did enjoy it with the score. But so Billy Crystal comes out with a horse. He's plugging City Slickers, which will later come out and make a lot of money. Good for him. Great movie. And he does the car alarm with the horse. Now, Joyce, I've watched a lot of these recently. Is that a runner that he has done, or am I just like conflating it all into this one? Has he done that before?
In like other ceremonies?
Yes. Did he do the car alarm thing in other ceremonies? Because it was like,
I don't.
Okay, so then this is just this one. Like I said, I've watched a lot of the Billy openings, but he does the car alarm thing because boop boop was like a fun. That's like a novelty at the time.
Yeah.
Boop boop.
So
on his horse, he comes out again. A lot of some politics shows. He's back for a second time. A few Desert Storm jokes. He has just an incredibly stupid joke about faxing Madonna. Because faxing was like a thing, and also it sounds like fucking. So then it kind of like that's the play on.
And Madonna
words.
Was there with Michael Jackson.
Correct. Michael Jackson is at this Oscars, burying the lead, perhaps. This one you sent me, I loved it too. Jeremy Irons was nominated for Reversal of Fortune, the Donald Trump story. We never could get away with from our former president, Donald Trump.
Yeah.
He talks
Future
about
former president. Yeah.
I would say I thought this is. I texted you this. I honestly think this is of what the ones we've watched. This is his second one, so it's like he's definitely like into it, but not nervous. And I think the songs,
like they asked him back because he was successful the first time.
And I think the songs are the best that he's done. It helps that the nominees for Best Picture are great, but he's got Goodfellas to Goody Goody, Dances with Wolves to Dancing in the Dark from the Bandwagon, Ghost to the tune of Love, and The Godfather Part 3 to the song, the love theme from Godfather Part 3, Godfather, and then Awakening's tune of All the Way. All of these are great. He has one line that I wrote down that I thought was so funny because even now he goes, "Put Duvall in Godfather 4," which is a hilarious reference because basically, so Godfather 3 brings back Pacino and Talia Shire.
And Duvall was like, no.
Duvall, they undercut on pay. And he was just like, fuck you, I'm not doing it. And it actually really hurts the movie because they replaced Duvall with George Hamilton. And no disrespect to George Hamilton, who seems like a very nice man, maybe. But oh my gosh, you cannot replace Duvall with George Hamilton.
Several casting replacements in Godfather Part 3.
Yes. Well, certainly most famously, obviously, Sofia Coppola plays Michael's daughter instead of like Winona Ryder.
Because Winona, she was exhausted from Mermaids. Yes.
Correct. But yeah, I was like, oh man, that's a really funny joke that even now, and that's something that obviously like has lived on, but then even at the Oscars, Billy Crystal's like, Duvall should have been Godfather Part 3 because you really needed him. And you need the character. He dies off screen. It's very silly. Anyway, that was all I got down for Billy. Anything else you noted for his opening?
No, I like the opening. It's like perfectly Billy. And yeah, the songs were good.
Songs are really good. It's very fun. So we open up with our first award of the night, Joyce, is Best Supporting Actress. Denzel Washington comes out. It's great seeing him. Won last year. I love seeing young Denzel. It's just a treat because now obviously you see him and he's a 60-year-old man, not as young as he used to be. But he comes out. He's great. That's
what happens.
You age. Aging is tough. And Whoopi Goldberg wins. And Joyce, I absolutely love this. She is thrilled. You know, I think nowadays it's like certainly like Anne Hathaway got dunked on for being like, it came true and like the world is just shitty and people are mean to everybody and everything stinks. But Whoopi's thrilled and she lets people know she's thrilled for winning for Ghost. I absolutely love it.
She was always very open about wanting to win, and she talked about how she became the first Black woman to win since Hattie McDaniel for Gone with the Wind.
So she's first Black woman win.
She came out in 1939.
So decades later, her speech is incredible. I pulled it up. I just want to read it. She says, thanks. Ever since she's like, literally, they show her. And she's like, yes, like in the crowd. It's so cool. The winning reaction shot rules. And then she's like, ever since I was a little kid, I wanted this. You don't know. My brother's sitting there he's saying, thank God we don't have to listen to this anymore. You can do it now. My mom's home. Everybody's watching. And she thanks Paramount and Jerry Zucker, who's the director who was snubbed in Best Director. And I think probably should have got nominated. I have to thank Patrick Swayze, who's a stand-up guy. I went to them and said, I want to do it with her. I want to thank Demi, period. And then I want to thank everybody who makes movies. I come from New York. As a little kid, I lived in the projects, and you're the people I watched. You're the people I wanted, made me want to be an actor. I'm so proud to be here. I'm proud to be an actor, and I'm going to keep on acting. And thank you so much. Great speech. It's a great moment. It's honestly one of my favorite one of these speeches that we've seen. I just thought everything about it was perfect.
Yeah, her speech is one of the ones I rewatch a lot. So because it is one of like the genuinely thrilled and excited reactions that you really don't get anymore these days, because everyone's trying to act cool or like it's like expected. And also, you know, we didn't have a lot of precursors back then, you know, SAG did not exist yet.
No. And I would say a theme from the acting winners is that almost all of them, with the exception of Joe Pesci, who is very humbled, expresses immense joy of having won. They're like, I wanted this. I wanted to win. And Kathy Bates says it later. She's like, I've been waiting a long time to say thank you to the Academy. Like she's straight up like, I want to win.
Yeah. And then you think about, you know, back when like Shirley MacLaine finally won, she basically said the same thing, you know?
And then even like, I think even Jeremy Irons says it too. He's like, oh, this is great. Like nowadays, I don't think you get that kind of like open enthusiasm.
Because like people come for you when you act like you want it, right? Or like that's what happened to Anne Hathaway.
Right. I think Anne Hathaway started that and people were like, oh, I don't want to get Anne Hathaway, so I can't actually pretend I want this, even if you do want it, which stinks because they should want it. It rules. Win an Oscar.
Like that's, and it's like, why are you campaigning then if you like, don't want to win this?
So Joyce, do you want to keep going through each winner, or do you want to do the categories, or how do you want to do this? I always get confused at how we want to do this.
Like, just go into the best picture.
Great. So the best picture, we said the nominees were Dances with Wolves, which had 12 nominations, I believe, wins 7. Just an outrageous haul. Goodfellas, 6 nominations, wins 1 Oscar. Travesty. Awakenings, which had, I think, 6 or 7 nominations. Oh, no, sorry. Awakenings had 3 nominations. That's the other best picture. And Ghost, and then The Godfather Part 3. Those are the 5 best picture nominees. Dances with Wolves wins.
Yes, not surprising.
Not surprising. Immediately did not age well. And while I'm sure Dances with Wolves is a fine movie, I haven't seen it in a very long time. Goodfellas is one of the best movies ever made. That it should have won an Oscar. Clearly, Best Picture.
I mean, it didn't win an Oscar, just not Best Picture.
It needed to win Best Picture. That's what I mean. It's just the best. It's the best. It's the best movie. We're doing this a few weeks here after Ray Liotta died, sadly. And it's just an amazing movie. There are no notes. I've seen that movie more than any movie probably in the history of movies, Joyce, personally.
Wow. I last saw Goodfellas in college. So this is like 16 years ago.
Wow, and Joyce.
And because I took an Italian American like in film class, just as an elective, because I needed just electives to like, finish college. So we watched a lot of Scorsese picks, including this. So that was the last time I've seen Goodfellas. Yeah.
I would say it's honestly the perfect movie. I know when we did this for Pulp Fiction, I was like, oh, I think Pulp Fiction is my favorite movie. Goodfellas is absolutely my favorite movie. I take it back. No offense to Pulp Fiction. It's like my second favorite. The Goodfellas is no notes. And I think it should have gotten a ton of more Oscar shine. And clearly this was the moment when the Oscars were not into Martin Scorsese, right? Like that was like the narrative, that was the thing. And he was another person to go with the Whoopi Goldberg thing, like we're talking about. He actively wanted it and was mad that he wasn't getting it, right? Like, I mean, you sent me those quotes. He was like disappointed.
Because you don't have the version of Inside Oscar that you need.
No, as you said, Joyce, I'm so bad at this. I think
you are bad. Me. So, because we've already went through several years with you not having.
I don't have this. My book ends. It's time. One of the ones I have.
You need the 10th anniversary edition.
I need the 10th anniversary. And I'm not buying it again. I'm just not doing it. You're so bad, Joyce Ng, to me on text. Thank you.
I know. I just send you like screenshots of select. Excerpts.
No, but you have like we were talking about in the thing. It was about Martin Scorsese certainly, and like how.
Yeah. So this is how the chapter ends. So obviously, Goodfellas does not win Best Picture, and then. So Janet Maslin denigrated Academy as, quote, an organization capable of deeming Kevin Costner a better director than Martin Scorsese, parentheses, the evening's single biggest outrage, close parentheses, end quote. Gene Seymour of Newsday demanded to know, quote, what is it going to take? What wheels does Martin Scorsese have to grease? Who does he have to buy off or knock off, end quote. Premiere, blah, 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 angry. Yeah, they said Scorsese was angry and disappointed. And that he told the magazine, quote, I wish I could be like some of the other guys and say, no, I don't care about it. But for me, a kid growing up on the Lower East Side watching from the first telecast of the Oscars, there's a certain magic out there, end quote. Two Scorsese veterans expressed their opinions. Harvey Keitel reasoned that, quote, maybe he got what he deserves, exclusion from the mediocre, end quote.
Incredible
Taxi
quote.
Drivers, Jodie Foster said, quote, when you look at the 10 old ladies who put down Dances with Wolves instead of Goodfellas, I don't know. The Oscars are like bingo. Who cares? End quote.
Jodie will not when she wins next year for Silence of the Lambs, and it's
she's already an Oscar winner too.
I already is an Oscar winner. Here's the other quote I was gonna, this is what he was saying. Like people like saying that, like, oh, like who cares? Your movies are great. It doesn't matter, right? That kind of thing. But here was another one he sent me. I have to go back to the night 10 years ago when he lost for Raging Bull,
Ordinary
People, to Robert Redford, because that was when I understood the kind of pictures I would be making, maybe outside the mainstream of Hollywood production. Still, Hollywood's highest honor is the Oscar, and you can't just say it isn't given accurately. John Ford has 6. So it does mean something to him. Like the history of Hollywood, there are great winners. In the terrible winners, like Driving Miss Daisy.
Exclusion from the mediocre.
Even amid the mediocre, there are really legendary people who won Oscars.
Sometimes, as we've talked about, they get it right, like Silence of the Lambs.
Right. And this time they did not get it right. Now, I will say, if you look at Scorsese's filmography going into Goodfellas, like I'm not surprised necessarily that he did not win for it, because like he said, the movies he was making are not necessarily the mainstream. I think Raging Bull, you could argue, should have won. It definitely could have won Best Director, I would say, over Robert Redford on Ordinary People. But I think Ordinary People is actually a great movie as well. And I think
love Ordinary People.
I think as a movie, it might actually hold up more than Raging Bull slightly. King of Comedy, he comes out, is now a beloved movie, but was completely denigrated at the time. After Hours, it's so much so that he went into a spiral of depression. Comes back with After Hours, which is a very small scale comedy, another one that has aged really well and that people love. Then he does Color of Money, which is like a mainstream Tom Cruise, Paul Newman wins an Oscar movie, but not really him. Last Temptation of Christ, which is like the most controversial thing at the time, and spent a lot of capital and on that. And then he comes back with Goodfellas. So it's not like anybody was like, oh, Martin Scorsese is due maybe in the Academy at the time, right? I think Goodfellas kicks off the narrative that actually we should give him. When he doesn't win for that, it makes it easier to go, we got to give him an Oscar one of these years.
Yeah, I obviously was not following this as it happened back then in 1991. But I think now it's easy to say, when he finally won for Departed, it's like, oh, he was overdue. But at that point, his biggest loss was just to Robert Redford and Ordinary People, right? So then you could say I think he should have at least won director, even if Goodfellas wasn't going to win Best Picture.
Right. And I mean, and in the years after Goodfellas, none of these movies are necessarily going to get him there, right? So it was Cape Fear was right after. Great movie, popcorn entertainment. And then he
did Age of Innocence, which was completely different.
Age of Innocence was completely different. Casino, which again has aged better than it. The response at the time was that it was Goodfellas 2. People didn't really care. Kundun, which was another completely left field move from him. Bringing Out the Dead, which was a gritty indie, even though dressed up. Then he comes back with Gangs of New York, which is a decades-long passion project pushed by Harvey to try to win. He doesn't win. Then The Aviator, another massive passion project with Leo, pushed, doesn't win. And then The Departed, which is a great movie. I know you agree. Nobody's going to denigrate The Departed in this podcast, certainly.
Yeah, and then it was finally his time, and they got George Lucas, Spielberg, and Francis Ford Coppola to present Best Director. And I'm like, guys,
he better win. That's the Steven Soderbergh move. Sometimes it pays off. Sometimes
it wasn't the last category though, but they did that.
Sometimes it pays off.
He finally won, but yeah, it was, there was enough time at that point that had passed that he hadn't won and he had been overlooked. But back in 91, it was just Ordinary People beating it basically,
right.
Raging Bull basically. So, and I think the vibe of the Oscars and the membership at the time just would not give a movie like Goodfellas.
No, it was controversial.
It wasn't a phenomenon or anything really.
No,
a Silence of the Lambs.
It wasn't like a Silence of the Lambs, and certainly from a box office perspective, it was a relative disappointment, and people did not like it. Some people the ending is polarizing, or it was. I remember the studio, the test screenings were holy cow, get me out of this movie, even though it's the best part. But I mean, the other thing is if you look at the competition, the years he wins, it's like, or the years that he could win, right? Like, Departed is a fantastic movie. It's honestly like top 3 Scorsese for me. I absolutely love it. I've watched it a million times.
I watch that all the time.
It's a great movie. I'm not here for people like revisionist history on The Departed rules, and Jack Nicholson rules. And when we talk about that one, whatever, I'll be stumping for him winning supporting actor maybe. But the fact remains that year's Best Picture lineup was pretty soft. So it was an easy way to get him a win. You know what I mean? Like, I think if The Departed was up against Dance with Wolves, it would still be Dance with Wolves. You know what I mean? Like, it's like there was no alternative.
Well, is it like The Departed competing in 1990 or like Dances with Wolves competing in 2006?
I think Dance with Wolves competing in 2006, Dance with Wolves would still win. I think it's like the traditional Oscar movie that would win. I don't think Scorsese, when he's up against like a big bold face, like melodrama, like Ordinary People, or like epic, like Dance with Wolves, can compete. But when he's up against like the Little Miss Sunshine is like the top alternate pick, it's like a small family comedy that's not going to cut it. You know what I mean? I just think like that's partially why he won for Departed.
Yeah, I mean, like that, like the 2000. I like most of the films in 2006.
They're good. They're just not like slam dunk.
But I also like, I don't know, like, because then we're saying that like Dances with Wolves like came out in 2006 and would have been as big in 2006.
I kind of think yes. Even if it came out now, it would be canceled probably, or just destroyed. But if it came out then, I still think it would have been like a big deal. I don't know. I could see it happening. But those were the 5 Best Picture nominees. We didn't even talk about the other ones, obviously. I think would you put Goodfellas here as the winner if you were going to actually redo it? Yeah.
I would vote, of these 5, I would vote for Goodfellas. I'm also like not a big Awakenings fan. Like another one I have not. I know so many people who love that movie, and I'm just like, I've never been into it.
A totally fine movie, weepy kind of like drama. Again, big Hollywood movie. With like a De Niro performance and Rob Williams.
I would rank it Goodfellas, Ghost. I don't know. I don't care. I don't really care about the last 3.
So if it was me, I would do Goodfellas, Ghost, Godfather 3, Awakenings, Dance with Wolves, probably.
Yeah, I don't.
Ghost is a great movie. So I came up with my alternate 5. I actually found relatively easy. Tell me, or additional 5 if this was like a 10 nominees. Joyce, tell me what you came up with. But I got The Grifters. Nominated.
Yeah. Stephen Frears was nominated for director.
Stephen Frears was nominated for director. Angelica Houston for Best Actress, and Annette Bening for Best Supporting Actress. So plus a screenplay nomination. So it was clearly a beloved movie, solid movie. I have Reversal of Fortune, another Best Director nominee, Barbette Schroeder, and also Jeremy Irons wins Best Actor. So I feel like that was an easy one. I put Dick Tracy in there because it had a ton of nominations. I think it had 6 or 7, right?
Yeah. And it won, I think 3, right?
Yes, it won 3 Oscars, had 7 nominations. So I put that in there. I have Cyrano de Bergerac, had 6 nominations as well. And had a Best Actor, 5 nominations, and had a Best Actor nomination for Gerard Depardieu. So I thought Cyrano was an easy one. And then I put Pretty Woman in because it was the top, blockbuster hit with, Julia Roberts in there. I think you can make the case for Misery as that last one as well. That would be my 10, but I kept Pretty Woman in.
I would put Home Alone in there.
I had Home Alone on my alternate list. I'm not surprised to hear you say that. Great movie.
Home Alone, like it's also like this is the era of when box office mattered too.
Right. So, well, that was why I went with Pretty Woman instead of Home Alone.
I mean, those were the top 3 films. It was Ghost, Home Alone, and Pretty Woman.
Yes.
Yeah.
Again, great. If that was the 10, great lineup. Even if it's Home Alone or Pretty Woman and the other 9, that's great.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I think if you showed that list to like casuals, they'll be like, oh yeah, that's definitely like representative of 1990 in film.
Yeah.
More so than the actual 5 nominations.
Great stuff. So Best Director will go here next. We talked about this. Kevin Costner wins for Dance with Wolves. Sure. Scorsese should have won, obviously. The other nominees were Francis Ford Coppola, Stephen Frears for The Grifters, and Barbette Schroeder for Reversal of Fortune. So no Penny Marshall for Awakenings, which I think is somewhat of a snub, and no Jerry Zucker for Ghost. another snub. I think Jerry Zucker actually should have got nominated, but I think because he was so closely associated with comedies, he was not. Obviously, like famous director
I think
like Airplane.
Jerry was probably like sixth.
Yeah, probably.
Because I think they would rather nominate him than Penny Marshall. So.
And then I also thought Warren Beatty could have been in here for Dick Tracy.
Sure.
But the list of directors I have here, Joyce, is just outrageous. So the other names I wrote down, I don't think any of these would have gotten in, but it's like you have Paul Verhoeven for Total Recall and Abel Ferrara for King of New York. Clearly not going to happen, but like two legendary filmmakers doing great work. Gary Marshall for Pretty Woman, mainstream kind of entertainment. Tim Burton for Edward Scissorhands. I think you can make a case for like him maybe getting in. Rob Reiner for Misery, I'm surprised wasn't more seriously considered. Mike Nichols.
Yeah, I would nominate Rob, but I don't think like that genre. I mean, it's still kind of amazing that Kathy Bates won for Misery,
Yeah.
So I don't think they were ready to do more than that for like a horror,
no.
like a Stephen King horror film.
And then Mike Nichols for Postcards from the Edge and David Cronenberg for Reversal of Fortune, I thought were all possibilities as well.
Yeah. I would just say like I think like Jerry was probably 6 and like Penny was probably after him. I don't even know how close Penny would have been.
I think not close at all because of the sexism of like the industry and probably not taking her seriously. So I would say like Jerry was probably 6 for sure. And then maybe like a Mike Nichols or Cronenberg for Reversal of Fortune or something like that. But it was like, or Alan Pakula for like Presumed Innocent maybe, right? Didn't he direct Presumed Innocent?
Yeah, but I don't think he will get like Best Director nomination.
I'm saying even maybe not Best Director, but probably ahead of Penny Marshall.
I mean, Awakening's got a Best Picture nomination, so
true.
Yeah.
So yeah,
I mean,
Costner wins.
It's like so insulting, like we'll nominate your film for best. It's like purposefully like snubbing her, and it's like obviously it's like the directors.
Well, they kind of snubbed the whole movie. It only had 3 nominations.
Yeah, but it's like it still made it in to the top prize,
Right.
It's like each individual branch like snubbing the other parts of it.
Sure.
Yeah.
Very, very fun. But that's a great list of directors. Just those ones that I mentioned, like not even Mike Nichols. I mean, like that's like all-time directors here doing stuff. Anybody I didn't mention, Joyce? Spike Lee for Mo Better Blues. You think Academy after?
I mean, are we just like listing people now, or people who could actually nominate? Like, we can keep listing people who directed movies in 1990.
Who directed Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles? Best Actor, Joyce. The winner is Jeremy Irons playing Klaus von Bülow in Reversal of Fortune. Costner a nominee here for Dance with Wolves. De Niro for Awakenings. Depardieu for Cyrano, and Richard Harris for The Field. Directed by Jim Sheridan.
I would nominate Ray Liotta.
So let's go there. The 2 people I wrote down who actually should have got nominated are Ray Liotta and Macaulay Culkin.
Yes, same.
So
Macaulay Culkin nominated for a Golden Globe, lost the Globe. So rude.
I honestly would probably boot De Niro for Awakenings. It's a stunt performance, and not like this feels like one of them. It's funny that we actually have a Meryl performance. I
don't care for Awakenings at all. So like him, him and Robin Williams.
Sure, I would probably dump De Niro, and I might dump Richard Harris only because I have not seen The Field. I apologize to Richard Harris stands out there. But Ray Liotta absolutely should have gotten nominated. I don't I kind of understand why, but like, man, it's just such an amazing performance. Like, not just because he's like a rest in peace Ray Liotta, but like, wow, he just absolutely dominates the movie. The voiceover is like impeccable. The best line readings of all time. I feel like he's just like the greatest voiceover artist in this movie. The performance is great. He does so many different things as Henry. He makes him so likable and so seductive. And obviously, better than to think he's likable and seductive, and it still works. Just an absolute movie star performance. Holds his own with De Niro and Pesci and Paul Sorvino and Martin Scorsese. And I don't understand how he didn't get nominated. I just don't. He could have won here, to be honest.
It's funny because his voiceover in the film is great. And better than Costner's in Dances with Wolves.
Yeah, it's a superior performance.
Yeah, and I don't, because I don't think he got, I mean, there are fewer like critics awards back then too, so like he didn't win any of those. So I don't know, maybe he was like too newish at the time, or I don't know. But so, it's like the lead performance, and it's very much like the vein of like Leo's performance in like Wolf of Wall Street.
Absolutely. Yeah. And obviously Leo got the nomination for Wolf of Wall Street. It is, and I think the issues probably without having a time machine are that you're right, like he's like a relative unknown and more known of as a supporting actor going into this, because he was in Something Wild, obviously Jonathan Demme, that was like his breakout, and then Field of Dreams he plays Shoeless Joe, and that was like a very nice performance with Costner. So and this, I think that's part of the problem. And I think again, the response to the movie, he's not a guy you're necessarily rooting for. And the last half of the movie, or last 35 minutes of the movie, he's just awful, but it's amazing. And like, I think that's just like a tough line for people to go, a tough journey for people to go on, especially when they're like Oscar voters who are celebrating mediocrity, as Harvey Keitel would say. So, Joyce, like
the white savior and like Dances with Wolves. So
yeah, gotta have the white savior in there. Joyce, you're the Home Alone expert, so why don't you wax eloquently about Macaulay Culkin here? Because I agree he should get nominated, but why?
Like, he is the movie, a literal child carrying the whole movie. Like, it's no co-stars for what, like 80% of the movie. It's just him inside the house, and yeah, obviously star-making turn. Iconic performance now. Yeah, memes all around. And sometimes I feel like if Kevin were a girl, like the lead character were a girl, like maybe, I don't know if like they would have been nominated, but maybe they would have better shot, because we know they like young girls, right, and not young boys.
Yeah.
But also it's a comedy, and that's like, they have their comedy bias.
They do have a comedy bias, but like, yeah, I don't know. I think he could have gotten. Do you think if Home Alone is today, do you think he gets nominated, or like last year, let's say?
No, like they still don't. It's kind of like what we do, with like Jacob Tremblay and like Room, and that's like a full-on drama with a Best Actress winner.
Right.
And I don't think like I think they probably would try to like run him in supporting somehow too, because he's a child.
I definitely think they would run him in supporting, because it's a high. I think there's a high qualification to get into lead, Joyce. So he probably would not cut.
It's like Whale Rider, Keisha Castle Hughes, like who's the lead, the whale? Like, yeah.
Right.
Yeah. But yeah, he should have definitely been nominated. Because it's like everyone knows that performance. Everyone has seen that movie.
It's a legitimately, I mean,
and if it's like miscast, like that movie would not work.
It's a legitimately good performance. He's really good. He is actually really good in it. It's a very fun performance. The other people I wrote down, none of these I think would have made it in, but I'll just shout them out. Johnny Depp for Edward Scissorhands. I think, this was like an early Johnny Depp performance that people were like, oh, we like Johnny Depp. And he's like a young actor poised to be like a De Niro type, basically, right? Or in that vein. Richard Gere for Pretty Woman. I don't think would have gotten in at all, but big movie. His actress component gets in, so maybe. Swayze for Ghost, I actually think maybe I would put right behind Liotta and Culkin. I think Patrick Swayze is amazing in Ghost.
I would nominate Swayze. Again, I think it's just not the type of performance they can go for the romantic lead. I think that's like tough.
And then I actually think Al Pacino in Part 3 of Godfather rules, and I think he can make it in. I don't think I'd put him in ahead of the three people like Liotta, Culkin, and Swayze, but I'd put him on my list. And is Khan lead or supporting in Misery? You could fudge him.
Yeah, he's like borderline. I would like, because when I think of Misery, I just think of Kathy Bates. So I could, like, I'm totally fine with he runs in supporting.
So I'll save him for supporting, but I really like that performance. I actually think he's good. Did you write anybody else down here?
No, that's it.
My
only ones. I don't list every single actor in a film like you do.
Like we said, Jeremy Irons wins Reversal of Fortune, and a good speech. Very, like I said, he definitely wanted it. He thanks Cronenberg, he thanks Glenn Close and Ron Silver and the whole
speaking
team.
of like borderline performances, like he's kind of supporting in that film too, because it's not really about.
This is like the heyday of lead actors who are not lead actors. We'll have Anthony Hopkins wins next year or of this ceremony. So, it is interesting. For Best Actress, like we said, Kathy Bates wins for Misery. I love this lineup. It's a really great lineup. Angelica Houston for The Grifters, Julia Roberts for Pretty Woman, Meryl from Postcards from the Edge, and Joanne Woodward from Mr. and Mrs. Bridge. Love this lineup. The only two people I wrote down, three people, were Demi Moore for Ghost, Shirley MacLaine for Postcards from the Edge. I thought could also be a lead. I don't think I would throw her in
she's
supporting.
Another one who could go supporting.
But she could go supporting. And then Glenn Close for Reversal of Fortune.
Yeah, I would nominate Glenn.
The problem is, who do you knock out here? I guess the obvious one would be or an easy one would be Joanne Woodward, but I think that's a good performance. I don't know. And she's a legend.
Yeah. That was just another Joanne and Paul joint.
Yes. I mean, we've done a lot of these. Almost every time we do these, there's a placeholder Meryl nomination, but I
love that. I love that movie, and I love her performance.
Absolutely awesome. She's one of her best performances in a great movie.
This is not a filler nom like Music of the Heart.
No.
Yeah.
And Julie in Pretty Woman is a iconic, amazing performance. I think
star-making performance.
And The Grifters and Angelica Houston rules. I think that's just a prime Angelica Houston performance. And obviously Kathy Bates for Misery winning. And like we said, she's very excited to win. She's like, I always wanted this. I wanted to say this. It's a great moment.
Both actress lineups are better than the actor lineups.
Yeah. I honestly would not make changes. I guess you could put Glenn Close in, but this is a solid 5. This is one of the most solid 5s we've had.
And again, it's still cool that Kathy Bates won for this villainous role, for a woman.
Great. Yeah. For supporting actor, Joe Pesci wins for Goodfellas. Legendary performance, legendary role. The other nominees are Bruce Davison for Longtime Companion, Andy Garcia for The Godfather 3, Graham Greene for Dances with Wolves, and Al Pacino as Big Boy Caprice in Dick Tracy. Joe Pesci obviously has the great speech. It is my privilege. Thank you.
That's all you need to do.
No notes. I wrote down a lot here. You might be surprised, but I don't know what I would put in or out. So, De Niro for Goodfellas, lead or supporting?
I would put him in supporting.
So I could see him. I would put him in.
He's already in lead anyway.
I would not nominate him for Awakenings. I would have nominated for Goodfellas. I think it's a prime De Niro performance. Tony Goldwyn for Ghost. I
love Tony Goldwyn in Ghost. When I rewatched it,
great performance.
Also, hilarious the elevator scene when he's just coughing on everyone. Because I also rewatched this during COVID. Obviously,
it's awesome.
He would be anti-vax.
I definitely I would put him in. Ron Silver for Reversal of Fortune, I think, is an easy one. He was an Oscar winner, according to the announcer. So maybe he could have gotten in here as a nominee. And then the only other ones I wrote down were Albert Finney and John Turturro for Miller's Crossing. The movie had no buzz and was not a serious Oscar contender. But I think if you were doing it now, both of those guys would be major, major factors here.
Yeah, I can see that.
And then Joe Pesci for Home Alone, Joyce. Though I know he couldn't. Got to pick one.
Would you, if you had to nominate him for between Goodfellas or Home Alone, what would you nominate?
It's Goodfellas, but he's great in Home Alone. Holy cow! What a performance!
So good. I mean, big year for Joe Pesci.
This is the biggest year. In the fall of 1990, he had Goodfellas and Home Alone.
Yeah,
just unmatched.
Mm-hmm.
It is.
I like to think that he also won for Home Alone.
I think he probably did a little bit. He swept through seemingly. This was an obvious win, right?
It was no, because Bruce Davison won the Globe, so it was I think he was the slight favorite.
Right.
But I think Pesci just complete scene stealing performance.
Correct. Just iconic.
Yeah, and then coupled with Home Alone as well. So, and yeah, it's Goodfellas' only win. I don't I think Graham Greene would have been a good win. as well. Like that's a really good performance. And yeah,
I mean, the Al Pacino nomination, I think, is a waste and a filler. Like, but
this is when they were just like continuing to nominate him, and he hasn't won yet at this point.
Pretty wild. And I love Andy Garcia in Godfather 3. He's actually quite good. It's like a breakout performance, I would say, for Andy Garcia, certainly. Supporting actress, like we mentioned, Whoopi Goldberg wins for Ghost. Just an incredible comedic performance that works. Annette Bening for The Grifters, Lorraine Bracco for Goodfellas, Diane Ladd for Wild at Heart, and Mary McDonnell for Dances with Wolves.
Yeah. So lots of tidbits inside Oscar.
Yes. Regale me with the tidbits, Joyce.
Which one should I start with, Diane or Mary? I mean, Mary's like it doesn't have anything to do with her or anything she did. It's just what was written.
Yeah, why don't you do Mary first?
Mary, hold on, let me.
I will say while you're looking it up.
When they're in the section about Dances with Wolves, and talking about like how like Kevin Costner got the movie off the ground. So Costner was willing to bow to Hollywood convention in 2 respects. The film would include a love story involving a white woman who conveniently happened to be adopted by the tribe already, and would have Costner's customary nude scene. So then,
yeah.
Later, when in the section about the nominations, or oh no, like predictions. So, oh no, I guess. Well, yeah, it's fine. Pundits decreed that the one sure thing outside of Dances with Wolves was supporting actress contender Whoopi Goldberg, who was facing the Grifters, Annette Bening, Dances with Wolves' white woman Mary McDonnell, Goodfellas Lorraine Bracco, and Pasta Chef Diane Ladd. So the Pasta Chef thing.
Yes, context, Joyce.
Because in the section about campaigning, so Ladd wrote letters to members inviting them to borrow one of the tapes of Wild at Heart. She estimated that 300 voters saw Wild at Heart this way. The actress went so far as to invite Academy members over for spaghetti dinner and a movie afterward. 20 took her up on it, including Esther Williams, Abe Vigoda, and longtime friend Shelley Winters, who later made phone calls for the cause.
Wow.
Diane Ladd working it.
Good for her. Yeah. I will say, I don't want to give Nancy any credit, but it's funny to me that they at least were not like, we're going to have Mary McDonnell play a Native American. Like, we have to have a white actress playing a Native American.
At least she stayed white.
At least she stayed white. Yeah. Like, it's just the lowest of low bars. But honestly, when I read that last night, when you sent it to me, I was like, I'm surprised that they actually thought that carefully about it.
It's like, we're still going to be problematic, but we're not going to make her a Native American.
Yes, we're going to be problematic, but not as problematic as maybe you think. That's how we're going to be it's progressively problematic, Joyce. That was their thinking here. This is a tough category. I don't know. Who else did you write down here?
I did. Oh, I had Shirley in here if she went. Supporting.
We could do that.
I think she could. I think definitely now. If the movie came out now, they would split them up. I think. Let me check the Globes. Where was she in the Globes?
Let me ask you this. I think that's right. I think they would have split them up.
She was nominated in supporting at Globes. So
Shirley MacLaine, if she gets nominated, does she beat Whoopi Goldberg?
No.
I don't think so either.
No. I also have Diane Wiest from Edward Scissorhands.
Nice.
And Winona for Mermaids.
And I wrote down Madonna for Dick Tracy.
Of course you did.
And then this one, again, a few years early, but Marcia Gay Harden for Miller's Crossing, which would, again, never get nominated, but she's awesome in it. It's like a really great performance.
Marcia only gets nominated without hitting any precursors.
Right.
And so this is the era of like basically no precursors. So it's too early for her.
And then Whoopi wins. And then now we usually go through screenplay. And we could go back to the ceremony because there was some other stuff I wrote down. But the screenplay, Ghost wins original screenplay. Woody Allen at the then customary nomination for original screenplay for Alice. Barry Levinson for Avalon. Peter Weir for Green Card. And Whit Stillman for Metropolitan. Just a wild list of nominees here.
Yeah, I'm totally fine with Ghost's win.
Me too, but I would have stumped for Pretty Woman and Home Alone in here as well.
Yeah, I would have nominated Home Alone.
And then for adapted screenplay, Dance with Wolves wins over Goodfellas, which is just a crime. The script for Goodfellas is like no notes, completely perfect.
I mean, I have not read the novel by Michael Blake. So, but he adapted his own book, and I know like Kevin Costner had like encouraged him to like continue writing because they had worked together on like an earlier film.
Right.
So he encouraged him to write this book, and then he optioned it, obviously. So I think it's like a nice story, and his speech is great.
His speech was great and like very cool, but like Goodfellas should have won. Awakening's the other nominee, Steve Zalian.
So the other thing about Goodfellas is Scorsese co-wrote the script. Doesn't co-write a lot of scripts, obviously. And I think like in the current era, like we always talk about like how like the screenplay awards is like a consolation prize if you're not going to win best picture or something, so they could have taken care of Scorsese here too.
I think if it was the current era, this would have been a Black Klansman win for Scorsese.
Yeah, like like you knew like Spike was not winning.
Spike was not winning anything else, but he was going to win because he was a screenwriter, and that's it. And I think that would have happened here. Awakening, Steve Zalian, a future winner. Donald Westlake adapting his own, Donald Westlake adapting Grifters, and Reversal of Fortune, Nicholas Kazan. Pretty dope list of nominees, honestly. But I would go Pileggi and Scorsese for Goodfellas. The book Wise Guy is so good.
Let's say like Goodfellas won this category. I guess like what would have been the level of outcry for Scorsese to win an Oscar for directing?
I think not as big.
He would still be an Oscar winner.
I think not as big, but I still think The Departed against the competition would have won. Like what are the directors that year were just not on the level?
It was Clint again, who had won 2 years prior, beating him.
Right. For a movie that wasn't as like well received.
So yeah.
I don't think Clint would have won.
Yeah. So he could. Yeah, like I think people would think it's weird that he won an Oscar for writing because people don't think of him as a writer. He's not like a writer, director, auteur like some people are.
Correct. So the ceremony, Joyce, just a few things I wrote down here before we wrap up. Let's see. Edward Scissorhands edited Bonfire of the Vanities. Great joke, Billy. Bonfire of the Vanities is like the biggest novel. Tom Wolfe. The Devil's Candy is a great book and also a podcast if you don't want to read like myself. I'm not a reader, Joyce, as you know. So you could listen.
No, you can't even finish chapters.
No, I can't even finish chapters. So great book, great podcast about the fraud production. Just a disaster from minute one. But it's a funny year because you have De Palma and Scorsese and Coppola all making movies, really. And Scorsese is the only one who's an unequivocal success, I would argue. But yeah, that's a good one. What do you think Tom Cruise said to Nicole Kidman when Joe Pesci won? He whispered something to her.
And like repeatedly whispered something, and she's just like nodding, like, yeah. I feel like it was something very pedantic.
That guy's in Goodfellas.
Like telling her something she already knows, or like maybe it's like he deserves that or something. And she's like, yeah, I know, we've talked about this.
So you mentioned Annette Bening doing Bugsy at the time, right?
I think they were filming it. Well, in Inside Oscar, she like was wearing a dress that she borrowed from the set of Bugsy.
They announced her. I thought this was great. Billy Crystal, among his announcements, says Annette Bening will soon be seen as Catwoman in Batman 2. Why are they making another one? And that's hilarious. I actually had to go back and look it up. She was, of course, cast as Catwoman in Batman for Batman Returns.
And then she had to drop out because she got pregnant.
Yes. So she was having a child with Warren Beatty, and Michelle Pfeiffer, who really wanted to play Catwoman, ended up with the role, and the rest is history. Michelle Pfeiffer, I think we could argue, probably should have been an Oscar winner for Catwoman or Batman Returns. And Catwoman.
Yes, well, we haven't done that year, so
when we get to that year, we'll get to it soon, I guess. Kim Basinger and Alec Baldwin do the score. Just deadly sex joke that Kim Basinger has to say to crickets.
Yeah, it was rough.
And then like Alec Baldwin goes like this. It is awful.
And they had like just started dating at this point, too. Yes. So it was like just I don't know how I feel about like when they have like couples present, like real life couples present.
It's so uncomfortable. That one was
like rough. They did that with like Ryan Phillippe and Reese Witherspoon one year, and then like that joke was that he was about to open and announce the winner, and then she's like, can I do it? And then he says, you make more than me, go ahead. And then they split like a year later.
So
the category, I would have given it to Surprise, Home Alone, even though I think the Dances with Wolves score is really good as well.
So the funny thing about Dances with Wolves score is it's by John Barry, who obviously is famous for his James Bond music. And when they started playing it, I did not thought of Dances with Wolves in a long time. And when I started playing, I was like, oh, this sounds just like the James Bond theme. And then I was like, oh, it's John Barry. No kidding. Of course it does. So I'm not surprised Dances with Wolves won, but the Home Alone score from John Williams is legitimately iconic.
The Home Alone score is as unmistakable as the house in Home Alone.
Correct. It is of his non-Star Wars, Jaws, Indiana Jones material. I think it is his best score. I think it's better.
And it's just like every type of motif that he had for all the different tones in the movies was perfect. Like all the cheeky, like heist stuff, and then like the heartwarming, like Christmas time stuff. You know, it was like perfect. Yeah.
So, and then going to song, like we mentioned earlier, Sooner or Later, I Always Get My Man, from Dick Tracy, music and lyrics by Stephen Sondheim, who was like, I'm not coming to this thing, wins. Congratulations, Stephen Sondheim. The other nominees are Blaze of Glory from Young Guns, I'm Checking Out from Postcards from the Edge, Promise Me You'll Remember from Godfather Part 3, and Somewhere in My Memory, another nomination for Home Alone. I'm glad Stephen Sondheim won an Oscar, but man, Blaze of Glory absolutely rules, Joyce. What a song.
It should have won.
I was really fascinated by the Young Guns movies. You'll be surprised to know. I was a big fan.
I love Young Guns.
Great movies. I love What If Old West, but Brat Pack. Great concept. Whoever came up with that deserves all the money they made on it, probably.
You know, this is the Western that should have dominated the Oscars this year.
Another one I want to talk about, Richard Silbert wins for production design for Dick Tracy. Just an absolute legend. There's a book that's about the making of Chinatown, which I already forgot what it is called. So I will look it up here as we're doing it. But The Big Goodbye, Chinatown in the Last Years of Hollywood by Sam Wasson. So it's all about like Chinatown in the Paramount era, stuff that we've seen in The Offer, plugging The Offer here as usual. And Richard Silbert is a major part of that. And he wins here for Dick Tracy. He worked on so many movies, Joyce.
He did Virginia Woolf.
He did Face in the Crowd, Manchurian Candidate, Graduate, Rosemary's Baby, Carnal Knowledge, Chinatown, Reds, Cotton Club, did Bonfire of the Vanities that same year, worked many times with Polanski and Elia Kazan, Mike Nichols, and Warren Beatty. He actually, Robert Evans named this guy his successor when he relinquished production chief job at Paramount. He oversaw Bad News Bears in Nashville as head of Paramount. Just an absolute legend, and he wins an Oscar, and his speech is great. And he kind of references like, we've been here a lot, and I'm like super glad to win, basically, which I thought was cool.
Yeah, and he worked on Cheers too.
Yeah, just an absolute legend. Yeah. You mentioned this last night. We were talking about it. They have Bob Hope come out. What is it's a motion picture Memories.
It again in the theme of, you know, the invention of movies and the camera. He comes out, no standing ovation for Bob Hope.
Tough beat.
These people, and like he stands there, like they're still applauding, and then it like gradually, I guess it's like 11 people start standing, but still not even a quarter of the audience is standing for him. No. And then he makes a joke about like how old he is, basically. Like he remembers like the first Oscars.
And he is old. I think he's like 88 years old at the time.
Yeah. And then just like a long speech about, you know, like movie memories. And then they play a pretty long montage of actors talking about their first movie memories.
So it's a lot. It ends, I think, and begins with Katharine Hepburn, though she's not pictured.
It's just they just pulled some clip, like an audio clip of her talking.
I'm not here to cancel anyone posthumously, but I will say the one that stood out to me was Hume Cronin going Birth of a Nation. Not necessarily has aged well, though maybe it was the first movie he saw. Certainly.
Yeah, you know, sometimes your parents take you to see things, you know, especially if you're a child. Macaulay Culkin is also in this, and he couldn't even think of like the first movie he saw. So.
Pretty funny bit. And then other stuff I wrote down, Joyce. Billy Crystal does an entire extended sequence to introduce De Niro, who is introducing Dances with Wolves. And it basically is the pitch for Analyze This. He is doing De Niro. He's doing an impression. He's like, you talking to me? You talking to me? It's like, that's in Analyze This. Somebody clearly, Billy was like, what if we did this as a movie? And it worked because it was a good movie.
Yeah. It's just like how In-N-Out was born at the Oscars because of Tom Hanks' speech.
And then De Niro introduces Dance with Wolves, which I just find like just cruel, honestly. Like, why is De Niro introducing this?
Like Awakenings is right there.
Or Goodfellas, when he gets Dance with Wolves, and then he seemingly leaves because he's not there when they announce Best Actor. They show a photo of him. They don't show De Niro.
Maybe he was just in the bathroom.
Unbelievable
it's
stuff.
Like he knows he's not winning, so who cares?
We mentioned Silence of the Lambs. They have Hopkins and Jodie Foster do screenplay, and they play the score. Love that moment. Jodie Foster's having the time of her life. She looks like so happy. It's like really fun. It's a great Oscars for Jodie Foster before her win, a second win next year.
Yeah. It's like she knows like life is good right now. It's like the movie's a hit. And I don't know. I mean, I'm not going to presume to think like she's thinking I'm going to win this next year. And also like she already has one at home. So, but it was a good presentation with them. And also Anthony Hopkins with hair.
Love Anthony Hopkins with hair. And he does the Lecter voice to Jodie, and she laughs when he's like opening up the envelope, basically. It's really good. And then the last thing I wrote down, and if you have more, please jump in. But I have at the end, when they do the credits on YouTube, you can watch, it just is literally like ripped off the TV. So it's an LA broadcast feed. And one of the promos is for Nightline with Hugh Downs. And then, well, hello, this is Rick Dees. Tonight, join Golden Girl Betty White, sexy Yankee Steve Sachs, and music from Kathy Dennis. Into the night, late night tonight. Rick Dees, who's a famous disc jockey, had a show on from 1990 to 1991 called Into the Night. And there you go. That night he had Betty White and sexy Yankee Steve Sachs.
We should find a copy of that episode.
I bet you I'm sure it's on YouTube. I didn't go the extra mile and search for it. But I will after we
I'm just gonna mention, I'm shocked you didn't mention this at all, but Goodfellas not nominated for cinematography.
Truly a crime. Michael Bauhaus, cinematographer, amazing. And we could talk here about Thelma Schoonmaker not winning for editing. Thelma has obviously won multiple Oscars, so it's not like she needed to win here. But I would say Goodfellas is
very well edited.
Her crowning achievement, I would argue.
Also, so Dance of the Wolves obviously won editing, and Neil Travis in his speech, he thanks Kevin Costner. And he's like, Kevin, let's do it again. They never work together again. Very funny.
I thought that was funny too. But yeah, Thelma Schoonmaker should have won. Michael Bauhaus, cinematographer for Goodfellas, just a legendary work, but not going to win. I mean, the cinematographer nominees there's definitely room for him. It's Alan Davio for Avalon, who obviously did E.T. and Color Purple and Empire of the Sun, worked a lot with Steven Spielberg in his early films. Vittorio Storaro for Dick Tracy, another legend. Gordon Willis for Godfather 3, another legend. And then Philippe Rousselet for Henry and June. And had worked with Robert Redford and Neil Jordan and stuff. So
we're like, we can't do 3 mom movies in cinematography. Like, no.
And I just think Michael Bauhaus did not have the juice as the other 2 mom movies as a name.
Yeah.
But absolutely should have been in here. And then editing, you have Neil Travis wins for Dance of Wolves, Walter Murch for Ghost, a trio, including Walter Murch for Godfather 3, including Lisa Fruchtman for Godfather 3. So you had 2 women nominated here, which is actually kind of cool. Thelma for Goodfellas, and then Dennis Verkler and John Wright for Hunt for Red October. I mean, Thelma for Goodfellas is just like unimpeachable.
Mm-hmm.
If I was doing this, Goodfellas wins Best Picture, Best Director, Best Actor, Best Cinematography, Best Editing, Best Screenplay. So... And Best Supporting Actor.
Won, and honestly, like it's like maybe it was like lucky to even have won one. Like I could have gone home with nothing.
Yep.
Yeah.
I don't know. That's all I got, Joyce. That's it. Anything else here before we wrap up?
Goodfellas officially your favorite movie, not Pulp Fiction.
Oh yeah, Goodfellas I've seen so many times, Joyce. So I remember the first time I saw it. So the first time I guess I saw it was, I remember vividly, my parents rented it and watched it on VHS, and I was like upstairs, like looking down.
You watched from the staircase. Like
I did. I watched like a lot of it from the staircase because I was too young for it, and it's obviously incredibly violent. And then I think I must have watched it as a teenager, certainly in like high school. And then we went to college. It was like our favorite movie, me and my group of friends, and we watched it all the time, like truly to the point where we had written out, this is back in the 90s, Joyce, so not as easily, not as much computer stuff. We wrote down like the ultimate Goodfellas like trivia quiz that we gave each other to try to see who could get the most right.
Oh my God. Wait, so it was handwritten
down to like what's the license plate on the
but like was one person overseeing this quiz, like a quiz master?
I think we kind of all did our own questions and asked each other questions, but like the license plate was like 254 YIP, YIP, in the Cadillac. And what was the weather like?
Who was the biggest Goodfellas stand then? Who won?
I don't remember. I mean, we probably had a 5-way tie, 4-way tie. Just the iconic movie in so many ways. I just love it so much. And this is a treat to revisit the Oscars. I will say overall, I thought that even though Dance with the Wolves, I think should not have won. And even though I was not as offended as like Janet Maslin, certainly, because I'm just like, whatever, the movie is awesome. It doesn't necessarily,
both of our favorite movies lost Best Picture.
Yeah, that's true. Which is fine. I've said before, I prefer it when movies I like don't win, because when movies you like win, it's not as much fun.
And I never really like expect what I like to do well or exceptionally well, because I just know my taste does not generally align with Oscar voters' tastes.
Right. So. But yeah, watching the ceremony I thought was really good. And like, again, it's only a 3.5-hour ceremony, and they did multiple
honorary Oscars. We didn't even mention the honorary Oscars. Like Sophia Loren got one. Myrna Loy, who was never nominated at like competitively for anything at all, she gets one, and she accepts via satellite. Pulls a Joe Pesci just as like, thank you.
This was a big year for via satellite at the Oscars. I feel like you maybe spurred by the coverage of Desert Storm, the Oscars were like, what if we did a global thing and we'll go get our satellite coverage ready.
Yeah, and then they also did the Thalberg to David Brown and Richard Zanuck. Yeah, and then so they didn't the category of visual effects did not exist yet, but they gave like their special achievement award to Total Recall for its special effects.
Yes,
yeah,
very cool. Love that. And then the performers of Joyce, we didn't talk about the music, but Madonna does Sooner or Later. A children's choir does Somewhere in My Memory. Reba McEntire does Checking Out from Postcards. Bon Jovi there for Blaze of Glory, and Harry Connick, Promise Me You'll Remember the love theme from Godfather Part 3.
I mean, we could have had Academy Award winner John Bon Jovi.
I mean, I'd be here for it, honestly. And then Billy ends the ceremony with the horse and goes, go see City Slickers.
June 12th.
June 12th. The billion people are watching. What, am I not going to plug it, he says? Yes, Billy. Go. Plug away.
A year later, Jack Palance, Oscar winner.
And Billy hosting again.
Yeah.
Just a great time. This is a good Oscars choice. So we'll wrap it up here. We'll be back with another 90s one. What ones do we have left?
I think we have 3 left.
We have to do Unforgiven,
Schindler's, and then American Beauty.
So maybe we save American Beauty for last.
Well, because 1999 is the best year ever. Yeah.
So let's go. We'll do Unforgiven next, I think, Joyce. That we'll get on record.
I feel like we've talked about that year enough in relation to other years.
Yes. So it should not be as long, maybe, for those who have made it this far. All right, Joyce. Bye.